Hey guys, welcome to the fourth episode. Uh, so we are going to continue from the previous where we left it. Let me share the screen. Get rid of start. Yeah. So this is where we left our last time. So our server is running over here, and perfect. And it's serving the let's teach template. And let's make sure there are no multiple changes. Perfect. So today we are going to, in the last session, we kind of created, let's pretend that the UI is done. One of the most important part, which is the data modeling, right? So, and that's actually the next part of data modeling, right? So we already have the most important part of the data modeling was this TOC, right? So if you have a TOC, you can kind of now how do we how do we it's a good question. So how do we make it work? Like how do we fetch the data? So what do we want to do next, right? So we want to this is currently a completely static site. We want some dynamic data to be included in the page somehow, right? And the dynamic data is, let's say, we go to our record, and let's say in this, sorry, no one. In this, we have this record, and like so, one thing would be to fetch this data. So you will have a field. Let's say currently we have just a string called status, and let's say this status can be new to seen to done. Let's pretend, and based on these three the statuses, we will use a different icon, and we will automatically pre-populate it with new. This is the very first time you're seeing the page. If you have seen this page in the past, we will. So basically, if you have never seen it, right, for any of them, if it's in a new state, then it will be shown with, let's say, a blue dot, like the way Gmail shows you the new email that have just come, right? Every time you log in on Gmail, you see in the inbox the extra and so on, right? So it's a blue dot we will show, and the blue dot will go away when you have clicked here. Like you can argue that you're already seeing that I have already visited 3 pages, and these 2 pages I have not visited, right? So that's the seen versus new. Um, so now obviously this is nice and helpful, but this data is only available on this browser local cache, right? Which links are visited and which are not visited. So we want this difference in the way it looks to be preserved, because that's the key fundamental data about me, and whichever device I want to use, whichever browser I want to use, I should see, assuming I'm logged in, etc. I should just see the top three in one style and the bottom two in different style, right? So you want this information. So that's the difference between seen and done. So done would be, so this so there would be a button somewhere here in this, in every page, and if the button says that what is called it is done, then it will be kind of so user can mark it as done, right? So if the user has in the past ever marked it as done, it will be in the done state. So anyway, so we have this status. Now this is, so how do we magically uh, make this appear, right? So yeah, so let's look at the data, right? So the data, this entry, where is it stored, right? So this entry data is stored in this variable. So we kind of have to, modify this variable, right? Because like what we can do is key, we can say that like there's a one more state called unknown, which means we do not know how, what does it look like, and let's make this the, or maybe null is the unknown, right? So because this is an optional string, so let's say null uh, means that I have no data, no status, right? So I can't. So basically, and the default value is null, which is the default of optional variables in fastn. So, but yeah, I could have used any other, like for example, new, or I can even not make this optional and make it like uh, like null here, right? In this case, this null is just a string that I have. Um, right. So how do we model it? It can, there are many ways to model it. I'll just stick with the optional string thing. So, I even though I've added a new field, my code which is here, which is initializing this, it need not change because there's a default value, right? So, optional field, the default value is nullable. For the other fields also, if you wanted, you could have created a default value of slash, let's say. So then this line would also have been kind of optional. So, but yeah, so anyways, so when we initialize this variable, it doesn't have the data. The data is unknown, and the key trick is to like call our processor. So create an HTTP service, and then that service will take the current TOC, the TOC data that you have, like this entire TOC variable converted to a JSON format, right? So in the JSON format, we'll send this TOC to the server, to some server, and then that will see that those fields are not present, like the status would not be present. So it will initialize the status and return you back the modified TOC, right? So that's the general, how do I say? So this is a commonish, this is a pattern, because we are basically saying ki for most data, you can store the data in the FTD file only, right? You don't have to store things in database. So, but the data in the FTD files you store are static data that that only change when the file changes. So how do we have these kind of use cases? Key mark the page as new. Have some fields about that particular, like how many likes has this particular blog post gotten, right? So that's a very dynamic data, and it cannot be stored. But the rest of the metadata about a blog post, like for example, what is the title and keywords, etc., they are not meant to be dynamic, right? That you only change when you're changing the blog post, right? So the only the um, yeah. So I guess you're getting the technique and the main use case. And so how do we do that, right? So we have to use something called an HTTP processor. So So this is how you do HTTP requests. What's on in this mainnet? Mm, okay, weird internet, right? So here, for example, there is some. So we have to import this processor, and so basically the trick is that we will not use this. So this will become like the like uninitialized, right? So this would be a TOC uninitialized, and then there would be a real TOC, right? Which would be whose type is the same as this. So it will be it will have the same type, but the variable name would be TOC. And this time we are not going to really hard code it or anything. We are going to call the processor, HTTP processor. So we are going to do this. and then we have to put a link URL, and this URL is going to be, let's say, backend slash, because this is a WASM URL, and and actually it will depend on where you're putting it. So because you're putting it in this file, from this file's perspective, the URL is where have we mounted this? Teach. So it's on the teach slash backend slash, let's say we will call it populate TOC, right? And then we have to pass this data. So we have to pass the TOC, and we'll pass the $uninitialized TOC, right? So with this technique, we are, how do I say, augmenting this TOC. And if you look at the other file, which is let's teach, we are actually using meta.toc whenever we needed the TOC, right? So the uninitialized variable is not getting passed. The initialized TOC is getting passed to the rest of the guys. Now let's see. Let's try to make this work. So what do we have to make this work? We have to first, at the very least, go to our backend and add that fellow. So in the handler, we will just rename this function, and we'll call it, what is it called, populate TOC. And this is a processor, because this is what you mean by processor. If you look at this FTSDK guy, it defines a few things. So processor, data, and form, and RAM processor. We'll ignore this processor versus RAM processor for now. So effectively in fastn backend that you're writing, you write either a processor, and you're seeing why is it called processor. It processes some data, right, on the page load. So obviously this has to be done after the page load also. So it's our limitation right now that the processor control variables cannot. So for example, let's say in this case, if this variable, right, changes, this TOC will not change, right? Because this TOC was created based on HTTP request, which we created when the page loaded, or on the server side. In fact, we do this processing on the server side. So the output of this page, when you load this any of these pages, they don't make a HTTP request call. This is not that. This is the HTTP request call is made while the HTTP initial request was being processed, and internally we make that extra HTTP request and then take the data and include it in this. So the HTML generated HTML contains the server preloaded data. So what is happening, right? So we need a populate TOC function, and that is what we are trying to do. So populate under TOC, of course, and we should rename it to populate TOC, and we are kind of done. Now let's see, we have to return some JSON, right? So we have to take some input. So what is happening is the input is this guy, and the output is something which is compatible with this data type, right? So the result type, the JSON that we send, will be passed to this guy. So it cannot be object. It has to be, for example, this thing, but it has to be. I mean to say, it has to be a list, but it has to be a list of entry. And if we remember, entry looks like, what does it look like? Right? It looks like this. So let's first create a type itself, where we map this to a Rust type. So we'll call it struct entry, and brilliant job. So we have caption, which is a title, which is wrong. It should be title. So this part was wrong. URL is a string. Concept is an optional string, and status is an optional string. We can do better by creating enum here. So obviously, the fact that over here I have modeled this fellow as a string and not as an enum is because while we do support enums, our match statement is still not there, right? So we don't have a way to match. So for now, we just use equal equal. So we use list of predefined strings and integers instead of enums. So we will be hopefully fixing this. This is the core 0.5 release. Currently, fastn is 0.4. So the core this thing of 0.5 push first is that how do we write match, and match is not the only thing we don't support. We also don't support like virtually the entire thing which so basically if you look at this, we have two languages. One language is the stuff that you've seen. The other language is the function language. So you can create, let's say, integer foo a comma b, which where integer a and integer b, right? So you can write a function here. Right? You're writing a function which takes to this thing, and it has to. This is the return type, right? So. So the grammar is that if it was a component, it would have been a component, but because it is not a tag like component or import, if you look at the other files. So anyway, so bottom line is key. This is a function because the return type is not a keyword, and it is a type, and the type exists. So this integer is provided by the fastn compiler itself, but it could have been our own type also. It could have been like entry. Whatever, right? So etc. So we could have done that, and this is going to be possible in the next one. Even now it is possible, but all you can do is some function in JS, and you call I think foo.a, foo.b or something. Right. So basically, over here, all we do is we just call a function in JavaScript, and that should take this data and return a JSON object which is compatible with the entry, whatever, entry record. So yeah, so that is all you can do in 0.4, but in 0.5 you will be able to do like x is equal to this, and obviously it has to be. So we'll figure out like how the language is 0.5 discussion. There are a lot of discussion threads about how the language will look like, but then you'll be able to do any whatever, right? Like any kind of this kind of stuff. The exact language this is not the exact language. We'll think about that in a different discussion. So because of the fact that you can do very little, we do most of the stuff on the back end. So therefore, also we are not using status. But on the backend side, we can use status. So we'll create a status and new scene done. Perfect. Yeah. So this should be now status, and we have not done any. So if you look at the convention wise, so we always prefer title or whatever, right? So if you have a two whatever. Like we use dash as separators instead of underscores. Just what is called a convention that we kind of follow. So which means because you cannot, let's say, had this been title main, you could not have created title dash main. So you'll have to first you have to make these guys Saturday, right? So and Saturday is not included in this guy, so I'll go and include Saturday also. And go to, I think it's already there. In my workspace, I've already included. I'm not here. Perfect. So I've included Saturday, and now I have to. So what is the complaint now? Yeah, so it's complaining. Why is this debug? Did I debug? So start. Oh, obviously all of them are failing because we need this exact thing over here also. Perfect. So now everything should be obviously green. Now we were saying or had it been a title main, so we would have done this, and then we can say. So usually you can just put a Saturday rename all. Rename camel kebab. Sorry. So we want this. So rename all kebab case is what we put in all our this thing. I mean, right now this is redundant because there is a single word. But if we ever rename any of them, we'll have to remember to do this. It's kind of like a. I think we should. I mean, maybe we should become like case. This kebab case versus underscore insensitive in our parsing FTD. We should improve this in 0.5. We should let you continue to define these names with underscore, but internally we only use what is called we refer to we handle either of the two, right? So if the JSON contains title underscore main or dash main, we should support both, and they should be. Sukant, if you're listening, you should create this as a discussion so that because I always have to add this line and it's just often time I forget this. So just few lines is always better. Okay, so we have done some basic modeling. Now we have to receive the data, right? So we have to receive the data as, how do I say? Um, so how do we get the data? Now this is a list of something. I think we have a JSON guy. So how do we find out? Let's we open another project only. Let's uh, where is .com? Let's open this guy. Come on. What's happening? What happened? Okay. Is this? Why is this slow? Anyways, so so we have a bunch of these guys. This is how you get the data. Now, why is this not? No, because it's index. Let it finish. So basically, we have to extract this data. Actually, let's do one thing. Let's do something easier first. Let's not worry about the input data. Let's just return a. So we have to return JSON. And what does it expect? It expects anything which serializable. So we can return a hard-coded vector of entry. And it will have the let's do that, right? So this is let's teach concept. Perfect. So these are like the important thing is this is hard coded and I wanted it to be different from what is here, right? So we have one list here. So we will pass this guy, right? So this TOC will be initialized by the output of this program. That is what I want to approve and load it in the page and see, right? So I think this is working code. How do we have to put this guy? What is a JSON representation of this, right? So we'll have to see that. I mean, it should be a string in the lowercase form, right? Because the on this side we are going to expect, right? So over here we are going to expect new, seen, and done in lowercase, and we are here sending new, seen, and not done in uppercase, right? So by default, so I think tag. How do we do that? How do we tell this guy? Do we have any enum here? We must have some enum. Let's see. So, which are part of output and have started deserialize, deserialize. Okay, we'll do this later. We will figure out. Let's pretend ki this is good enough. Kebab case will lowercase it. I'm hoping it doesn't lead to let's just look at strategies documentation. Survey enum JSON enum representations, right? So if we have internally tagged and adjacently tagged, untagged, and there is a simple one, we should just have a okay. Let's ask ChatGPT uncle. Okay, so and obviously we could have just verified all of this by just calling this API search dumb message. Yeah. So let's see. Build was so now we are going to do populate. See, let's see. Perfect. So the concept status is done, seen, and perfect. So we have verified our status is such. Now, when we visit our page, so let's look at our page. The last time it looked like this. Now it should crashed, it didn't work. Okay. Teach backend populate. So now this is possibly a bug. Let's see. Okay. So there are a few things. So this is a general idea. Now, obviously, when we are building it in app, we are in very new, uncharted, what is called territory in fastn. So these are the first few apps that we are building, and every kind of use case is going to be kind of like a new kind of use case. So this new use case that is coming up is key. Let's look at the URL structure, right? Like key, what should be here? Because this is the URL, and this is what I want. There is a is there a possibility that it's returning a 404? No, it's saying endpoint not found. Let's do some cheating for now. This is a interesting topic, which is of the nature key. How do we do URL, WASM URL, this thing? So I am going to try to do some cheating. I am going to. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that fastn should have been good, and good means that this URL should have worked. And what is the logic of this URL? That teach is the first part, obviously, and then subsequent things is inside teach the backend. So the request goes back to this guy, and then populate TOC inside that, which we have just created. So this should be the right one because we are putting, but the same line, had we had to put the same line in this package, right? Let's pretend for whatever reason, and right. So let's pretend. So then we can't put it in teach because this is unknown. I don't know where have you mounted. So in this place, it should be this, right? So I think um, currently we do not do data loading. Where is the request coming from? Request is coming from this file, but so this is getting loaded. This is loading this page. This page is defined over here and is loading. So we are in the, yeah, as long as if it is written here, it has to have this. Otherwise, you don't know which package is. So I think this is very clear that this is the right one. Let's not try to prove this. Now, whether it is working correctly or not, I do not know. Right. So we are going to use, or do we have to use this, but with Watson? Let's try this. But I think this was only needed when you wanted to explicitly. This is something to investigate. So we are going to mount that URL. Oh, in a URL mapping place, and this is going to be mounted to. So, right. So we are going to explicitly pass teach slash backend to WASM proxy. Let's say backend Awesome. And what we are going to do is cheating, right? Like this should have worked, but we are not trying to break our head about making this work. So we are explicitly let's teach dot slash backend dot awesome over here. So now the URL teach slash backend will explicitly be, we are saying it should go to this guy. And when this guy will try to see teach backend and populate TOC, it should go inside the, where did the file go? Oh, we moved in the wrong place. Move backend dot awesome to the template. Let's teach template. Perfect. Yeah. And just to be, because you don't trust a software just because it is written by you. Okay. Populate TOC endpoint not found URL. We have to. Hmm, yeah, let's look at this index.ftd. We are doing everything correctly. URL is this we are doing right. Is this because of this guy? That's for distrust everything. So this bottom line works. Next to last one doesn't work. So URL is teach slash backend slash populate TOC, which is teach slash backend slash populate TOC. Go inside backend. Uh, 52 slash, let's see, 52. In 52, let's say it's going as 52. I think this is the 52 crate. And everything is going to these handlers like site info. So site dash info, what is the URL that we are using? Site dash info in the source code. Right, so site, so site dash info. So yeah, so you can put either dash or underscore. Both of them is good, depending on what kind of URL, clean URL you want. We just normalize everything to underscores. So this is the full API name in the backend, and this is the full API name, which is this guy here, populate TOC inside backend. We could have used, let's say, populate dash TOC also. Let's say key, it is that. Let's see. Now endpoint not found. Teach backend populate TOC. Why is this not working? Let's look at trace. Okay. Let's see what is going on. Wow. This is pretty big. Okay, this is the first mention. Just teach this. Template. Teach again. Read me that it was ignored because of this reason. Oh, that took to be. Perfect. So the problem was that obviously the thing that should have automatically worked was like we did not need this entry, but we need this entry because of thing. The reason it was not working was that I was not using this new line. Because I was not using this new line, our parser was treating this portion as a header key value, whereas we needed body, right? So this was actually treating this as as a key and not and v2 parsing inside body. Obviously, you should have complained that URL mapping doesn't take any header. So consider this guy this does take two headers. So the fact that an extra header was passed and silently ignored is definitely a bug, and obviously you can see why it is bug because it wastes a lot of time. Error messages are incorrect. Anyways, so the most interesting thing that we have achieved so far is that we have called a backend API. Let's try to use this, and still works. Perfect. So we have called a REST API from FTD on the page load, right? So how do we know this is there in the this thing? So you can see the inspect element and network, and go to the HTTP request, and in the view source we can search for this string, and we will see that the string is present in this, right? So the data that we have has been included in the rendered first version of the page. So brilliant. So we have something working. We can just create a commit. Okay, status. Let's see. So we've added 30. We added something in the workspace. We have renamed something. We have added a dummy JSON. This is worth recording. This is worth recording. Yeah, we needed it. This is a bug. We will fix fastn to make sure that this is not needed. So this use case we have not really tried. So apologies, because in the previous case, the app was so either of the two things was happening. So in this case, all the API calls were happening from this package, and the wasm file was also part of this package, right? Somewhere we do ft2.wasm. So calling into your own package when you're the main package, that works. And similarly, calling into yourself when you are a dependency, that also works, right? So we can see that by looking at this dependency called auth, and inside auth you will see that we have called all this pr right, and so on. Let's see, have we used pr for awesome? It's dollar uh, processor pr.http. pr.http. Oh, we're not using pr.http. Okay, so these URLs work in other contexts. So if you look at site.info, this is so these URLs work in this context. For example, if you see these URLs, right? So when you use this ftd.app URL, it looks like things. Oh, we already have support for all of this. I'm doing it wrong. I think, let's see if it works for processor also. So basically, the URL I'm constructing should be constructed using this, and it should be backend slash populate UC, and I think this has app is equal to, let's teach. Uh, yeah, let's see if this works. What is it complaining? Will the app URL work in dollar processor? I think there's a discussion about this. How do we check app URL? So this feature is mostly used in. So this has obviously not used. Let's auth has not done this, but let's see. Let's talk. If we check out the Let's Talk app. Yeah, let's check out. No, that. Let's check out. Let's update. This also we have done this, but we don't explicitly pass the app URL. So let's see. Do we use app URL? Yeah, so we are using app URL, but we are all using app URL. Oh, yeah, that is how you use app. So, but this is not a processor. Okay, good. So this works. So this is a server loaded string, right? This string's the initial value of the string is populated on the server because sorry, this variable is populated on the server, which means key this fellow works on the server side rendered code. So FTD code that you're writing, some of it runs on server side and some of it runs on the front end side. So it clearly only works on the server side. Anyways, so we have to pass app equal to. So we were doing it wrong. So let's go back to our package and we have to say app is equal to this. And over here we have so for good measure and whatever we should have, we can allow this space around here also. Okay, let's pretend this is okay. Let's try whether this works. It is not working. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, so I think this might be thing. Let's say and we say $URL. App URL X. I am calling app URL by looking for app URL X. Maybe this is horrible error message. What do I look for? So this code, let's see. So over here, there is a variable that I have. I mean, let's put space on let's pretend this is something as dumb as this. And of course, there is no such thing as X. So this is all. So why is this not? So if you got app URL X, this app URL X. What I'm trying to say is that this is the right code that we should have written, but not working. So I'll just copy it and then we'll go back to the one that was working just some time back, which is the URL with yes. So this is working. Perfect. So this is what should have worked, and this is not. In fact, actually, we should not even have to do this. This should have also worked, and this would have been correct, and we should not have needed this entry. Right? So this is kind of like but we'll make it happen. Huh. So yeah, so we'll ignore this. That's one of the ways you comment. This is called structural commenting. I came across this on some random structural commenting comment languages. Structural comment. I don't know. Somebody came up with this. So this is. Okay. So this works. Now what do we have to do next? We have to do two things next. So one, we have to pass this data from the backend. We have to pass this data to the backend. So let's commit this much. We are getting some data from backend. Now passing this TOC variable, so we have to pass TOC equal to dollar TOC uninitialized, right? And now we have to read this and mirror it back, right? So how do we read this data? So there is a this is the typical thing that we try to follow. So we are basically going to depend on JSON, and this should be JSON, and JSON doesn't have a so where does this read the JSON from? Right, it takes the entire body and passes it as JSON. So have we used FTSDK in either of the two projects? That's the will be inside backend. We have not used it here. We have used it here. Right, so how does it work? So we need a data type which has the data that we are passing. So it's a create text post. Let's look at create text post. On the front end side. So create text post, right, is passing these two fields, title and is public, and it's going to go to this guy, which has title and is public and an optional body. So whatever data we are sending from the front end, the entire set of data should be serialized into a type. So we have to create a type. Uh, how do we write this line on the server side? Create text box, right? So we wrote it as over here. We specify the type. Okay. So we need a type here. Let's say this is called populate UC input. I'll create a struct populate UC input, which will take, come on, it will take this guy, what we are passing to this TOC, right? So it will take the TOC. And what is the type of TOC? The type of TOC is a vector of this entry. So we will use vector of entry, and this should obviously, come on, don't make me type. So obviously this had to be, this was part of both these two structures. Therefore we used both, implemented both serialize and code, so you don't have to implement both serialize and deserialize. So we need to implement deserialize. So serialize takes some data and serializes into some string or whatever. This guy takes a string and does the opposite. So now what is your problem? TOC is never read, no problem. We will read it now. Now we are saying populate TOC input, and what we will do is we will take this data, which is now TOC, and let's append one entry or append all of these guys. So what we'll do is we'll take the TOC, which is the input that we got, and TOC. So we have to do this mutation. So we have to make this guy, I think this is how you will do that. Perfect. And then you will say TOC dot TOC dot, or let's call it TOC input, TOC underscore input dot TOC dot, we want to do append, right, or extend with an iterator, and this is our iterator. Can we pass this guy to this guy? What is wrong? Okay. Oh yeah, because we have done remove this. We remove this line. I'll take this TOC input. Serialize. Oh, we want to pass the. So the data that we return must match with this guy, right? So this is the output. So now what we should see is all of these and plus 3. So we should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3, 1, 2, 3 entries. Okay, semicolon. We will do a build, and we'll do a copy. just because whatever. And look at our page. So looks like there is a possibility of caching. So let's go and restart this server. Okay. What is going on? First, let's see if our API works. What do we call this guy from CLI? We can call it from the CLI. Just call it. So populate TAC is working and is doing this. Now we have to pass. Uh, let's. How do I see? Ask this fellow guy, please. Command to pass of vector of entry as input name C. Okay, this looks reasonable. So we will copy this and we'll create a new scratch pad and we'll paste it and fix it. What do we have to fix? 127.0.0.1 8000. This looks all right. So this is the input. Let's put. Now we are expecting 5 output because 3 were passed here. So we have only 3 entries. So backend is returning is wrong. What are we doing? Oh my god. We have mutated this to simple.qc. Okay, we can extend. We are extending FT SDK print QC mutation. See, the Watson output is getting printed first of all. It's supposed to go here. Let's do it. Why am I getting this? How do I clear this input? Okay. How do I clear this input? Stupid. Clear. Come on. Close all. Fuck you. I will close the terminal. Ah, now very clear. This time we'll make a curl call to debug it. For some reason, our WASM output was not read because the tracing level is info. How do we? Okay, this is not a good idea. So what do we do? This output is fastn WASM. Okay, now we can see the output. We still can't see the output. So what do we do to get the output? How do we run fastn on our rod? It will be in oops, and let's say hosting and admin service. Trace only requirement. We are passing in one variable. Let's see, let's look at hosting also. Hosting ft.service. Again in one variable. No, just trace. How do we see was blog? Let's see, maybe fastn.com. Is this even the right URL? Should we please tell me maybe some mention of how to run fastn to see the logs? We are going to be doing hacker and we will say let log equal to format and fetch and let log equal to the error is something totally different. Can't find the backend or was no such file or directory paths. Wasm C. Oh, this is not a problem. Wasm code returned non 200. So Wasm code is returning non 200. Okay. So which line can be giving on for 200? And this might be this line because let's do one thing. Query scroll to your C. And let's go back here and remove the vector to get it. And let's put this whole thing as a So I think we're getting this string and we can just pass it. Sorry, this JSON thing doesn't really work properly. So let me do this. Let me or TOC is equal to survey JSON from str. I think it should just work. And then we'll do TOC dot. What do we want to do append? So now we will not get this. We will get vector of entry. Okay, so we are going to do TOC dot. We call it insert and extend by this guy. Okay, we don't do this anymore. Return the TSC. What's the problem here? This. I don't know. So now we are going to do build and then we'll run fastn. And then let's see. Okay. Okay. So now, what did I do wrong? What does extend do? Oh my god. No. What is going wrong? Okay. Let me. So really weird thing. Maybe I'm using extend wrong. Let's just push one entry. Perfect. So now we are doing something, right? So got data from backend. We'll have to do the whole build runs. And copy and then paste in. So perfect. Right. So we are able to do absolute minimum. This should not have taken as long. We clearly have encountered a few more bugs. But now we can see that there is a data which is basically defined in fastn over here, can be manipulated by the backend. Right? So we will take a pause here and I will do this commit. This should be optional, so let me make sure it's still working. Perfect. Let me really make sure it is still working by doing this and seeing an error and then seeing the error go away. Yes. So yeah, what have we done? We have now, instead of passing the static data, we are taking the current value and mutating it. Let's make this guy slightly happier by, oh, okay, it is happy now. Let's comment minus m. Manipulating static data in FTD file using backend. And push, and we will call it a day. Great. 1 hour 27 minutes. Thanks for the patience. Bye bye. See you later.